Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope you're all doing really well today, 30th of July 2025. So nearly into August, start of the season and 5 months. So I've literally just got back from a 4-hour drive. So I'm basically jumped out of the car, kind of stopped off, and as I did, or actually I just heard on Talk Sport about 20 minutes ago or something like that. So I just had to literally jump on quickly here and kind of report what I've heard. So as I've then stopped, obviously the reports are now that United have chosen Chesco. So again, we did a quick show this morning from the car, and we were kind of starting to talk about what we have been talking about for the longest time really on here about Sesko and Watkins, and kind of what we thought the kind of thought process behind it was. And so Benjamin on TalkSport has basically come out in the last 20 minutes when I was in the car, sort of live as well on TalkSport, basically saying and confirming that United's chief scout, not the I can't remember his name now, but he's one of the chief scouts, and he's secretly gone over to Leipzig and had those conversations and started to kind of get in there and start to have those conversations now. So there's been, and again we spoke about this, about what our tactic would be, and it now appears that we've played our hand. I think 50 million for Watkins, I think, is the price that Villa want. So it's quite clear now that we're not prepared to pay that. So we are, as it stands, we are now in Leipzig. We're now talking to the club and seeing if we can do a deal. So from Benjamin, basically saying that Leipzig want a price close to about the 80 million euro mark, effectively, but we're kind of wanting to pay around that 70 mark. So that's, I think now that's where we're at. So it has gone, in my opinion, on so Newcastle are still there or thereabouts, but that's sort of starting to, from my opinion, from what I've seen, from what I've watched now, Newcastle clearly went in for the player, clearly went hard in, and kind of hoping to steal a march, thinking that maybe United weren't really seriously thinking about the play, maybe pricing this out of the market. Now I think United have spoken to Chesco. Look, we have been speaking to Chesco, and I think that maybe they thought that maybe that we wouldn't come in and make a serious bid in time enough. Now we've obviously spoken to the player, and United now have clearly made that move, and I believe now that the board and Amorin and everybody now has been convinced that Chesco is the guy. Now, as we said before, doesn't mean to say, and this has been confirmed, and this will be confirmed. And now I'm expecting the next day or so for it to be confirmed that we are negotiating. And the moment that this comes out and is official, like we said this morning and yesterday, this deal now has to move quickly. This deal really does have to move quickly. So I'd love to know in the chat if you're in there already. Obviously, don't forget to give us a little thumbs up and a like, because that really does help the channel out. You know, just let us know that you're there. In terms of the chat, the only thing I really do ask is that we be respectful to each other. Now, pretty much come and say what you like. If you want to try and take us off of the subject matter that we're on, as long as it's to do with pretty much what we're talking about, you can kind of veer away, and I'm not going to stop you from pretty much talking this, as long as it's relevant to part of the conversation that we're talking about or relevant about the club. Then I'm happy to be led by you. This is your show as much as it is mine, so feel free to come in the chat, and I will endeavour to interact as much as I can, and endeavour to kind of read and debate what we talk about on here. So I've kind of come into this a little bit late. And as always, what happens with me is whenever I go for a run, whenever I go make something, a cup of tea, whenever I'm in the car for 4 hours, pretty much nothing I could do. If I could have streamed in the car, then I would, but I think that's against the law to stream in car. So yeah, so pretty much as soon as I got back, I decided to jump on here and kind of give my further thoughts and opinions. So this is what I heard from TalkSport, basically, just as I was pulling up on the driveway. So this is now being confirmed that United, as much as originally my thoughts and opinions, and I've been saying this for a while, and it was a kind of hypothetical thought that we had. We knew we were in for Watkins. He was one of the targets, and I wondered originally whether this was a ploy for Watkins for Villa to lower their price. Now, United, I almost thought that it was it a little bit of a ploy from them to come in and say, look, we're going to pay all this money for a Chesco deal. If you come down on your price, we'd rather give you that money. For Watkins, I can give you my opinion on where ultimately I would like to end up and my reasonings why. And I've said this, but I don't mind repeating myself. I'd love to know, especially if you're new to the channel, what you think on which player that you would go for. Obviously, we are in for Chesco, and Chesco is now the number one. Where would you like to go? Because ultimately, until he's signed, he isn't here. So I'd still like to know your thoughts on that one. So it looks like we are going to go for Chesco. We are in talks with him, irrespective. Whitwell. He's been out in the States, and we did a live stream 2-3 days ago. Somebody come on with a really good opinion and point, saying that Whitwell was saying that we're not in for the player. He's not really talking about the player. And of course, as time, when you've been doing this, or when you've been watching this for a long time now, I've not been doing this for a long time, but I've watched football for a very, very long time, and I consume lots of different things. And you can almost tell when people are almost hedging their bets, right? They when they then start getting they almost say stuff to be different and controversial to everyone else. Doesn't mean that he doesn't get bits from the club, because he clearly does. He's a very experienced guy. He gets bits from the club, but sometimes what that means is that they kind of need to put their spin in it, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I could come on here and I could say whatever I liked and not think about it and just do it for clicks and just go, look, I think we're going to get Cristiano back, right? And I could say, oh, I heard it from this place or that place. And then ultimately, when he doesn't sign, I can just go, well, I wasn't sure, and everyone else is not sure, right? So you can just say stuff because you want to put a little bit of a slant in it. But it was so obvious, and we did say on here last week that we were in talks with him because we were in talks. Florian Plettenberg, Tier 1 in the Bundesliga, he come out with this as well, and he basically said last week that we were in talks with him, and I think we have. I think Isak potentially going to Liverpool has obviously put a cat amongst the pigeons and it's forced our hand, because I think we wanted to wait until the end of the window. Doesn't mean to say that we're not going to try to negotiate this deal out until we get rid of some players. But the moment that it's reported, and it could happen at any time, that we are talking to Leipzig, then Newcastle, you quickly see them. They will back away from the deal, and they will then start to look at other replacements, maybe Watkins even. So you just don't know. But if you have just joined, this has been reported by other people out there. But as of 25 minutes ago, when I was in the car, TalkSport were talking about this, how basically our chief, the transfer guy at the club has been over there yesterday for some secret talks, which are not, and we are, and is that word again? We are concretely, or whatever you want to say it, in for Chesco. So that is where we are. So if you want to get into the chat, let me know your thoughts on this. I'll give you my thoughts again on it. I'm probably repeating myself, but I'll give you my thoughts, and I'll tell you for why I think that we're going to go for Chesco now. So I think, first of all, for me, it's depending on what you are trying to do. Okay, so if you are trying to go for fourth, trying to go for fifth into Champions League spaces, and I will reference Ornstein on this as well, and reference some of the other things that again got missed last week. If you know you're going to go get a centre midfielder, a goalkeeper, combined with Cunha and striker, and Burmo as well, let's not forget him. And if you're going to combine all that together, and you're a confident club, and you're confident in what you are doing, and you're confident in your season ahead, you go, let's go for Ollie Watkins, because we're going to go and push for those spaces. We're going to do it this season, and we're going to back ourselves, and we're going to back our coach, and we're going to go. So you go and get him, Watkins, who's a proven Premier League striker, 25-30 goals and assists every season. He's 29 years old, but you put that money into that player and say, look, the money we're going to get for the Champions League and remaining in the Champions League, because we're confident of that, is going to pay for the next round of players, and we're going to do that. Or you go, I don't think that we think we're going to get into the Champions League. Also, as well, as David Ornstein last week has said, I think so many people missed this, was that United said that they think the business that we've done is good, but we don't think we're going to get all of our targets in this window, and we may push it to the January window. Historically, we don't do business in that window, right? So therefore, if you're not going to get a new goalkeeper because you can't afford it, and you're not going to get a centre midfielder, maybe we will get one on loan, but maybe we won't go for a keeper, and you can't fill your positions, and what you're going to say to yourself, right, is we're going to build this team. We can't afford to pay 45 million for a striker, and we just languish 10th, 12th. That simply isn't going to work. But Chesco, the benefit of him is time. He's 22 years old. You can build with him, give him time. He gives him time. But also, we're not a club right now who's confident. We're not confident we can get a keeper. We're not confident we're going to finish 6th, 5th or 6th. So therefore, Chesco buys us time. Chesco, I think, inadvertently is a good deal. But I think it's a deal done by a desperate club. Doesn't mean I don't like Chesco. I really like him. I really like him. But for me, that's you admit as a club that you don't think you're going to finish 4th or 5th because you need time, and it's more of a gamble and a risk. It's a calculated gamble and risk because he's 22 years old, have him for 5 years, and he's still going to be worth his money. Or once you've paid for him over that time, then you know pretty much you're going to be there or there. So financially, it's less of a risk for Chesco than a Watkins, because Watkins, you're not going to get your money back. Chesco, for me, is an admittance that actually we don't think we're going to get that 4th or 5th place. So we just need that time. He may hit the ground running, but there's an admittance there that you're not going to get all plays. And Chesco may be the actual perfect excuse not to buy additional players, because if you're going to, let's just say you buy Watkins for 50, you still need to get a keeper. That might be 30, that's 80 million pounds. And then you may have to get a centre midfielder. So you're spending in the region of probably 100 to like 110. You go and get Chesco for 70 million. You then got the perfect excuse to say, actually, we can't spend another 40 million. So we've got this striker. So you keep your fan base happy. It's a worthy investment. And also, you can then sit back and like have an excuse when you don't finish 4th or 5th. So Chesco, for me, is a fantastic player, but you've got to look at the context behind also what the mindset of this deal means. Sporting Gold, welcome and thank you for the chat. So obviously, so this is it's awesome if we get him. So many reasons in your signing, and obviously they listened to Christian Revel there as well. Yeah, so I think he's out there as well. They were never going to sign Watkins at 29 for 50 million-ish. Now get a goalie. And Sporting Gold, love that. Love it, love it, love it. No other club is going in Europe will sign Watkins for this price. They will get a goalie, I think. Good comments. I love the second comment. I mean, I'm in agreement with that. Onana has to go. The noise is coming out. They may stick with Onana. I hope that's not true. But as the reasons I just kind of alluded to there, that's my opinion. That doesn't mean that that's truth. Is that almost if you get Chesco, you can, and I do agree that we definitely need a striker. We definitely need a keeper. If you get Chesco, in my opinion, and I do agree with the Watkins thing as well, I think Amorin desperately wanted that player. But one of the fundamental reasons I think that Chesco appeals to the hierarchy, and you've got to think about this club, you've got to think about who owns this club, right? Chesco is a big outlay, okay? And 70 million, okay? Massive, massive outlay. But if you look at the club and what they are and who they are and the business side of it, Chesco as a business makes sense because he's a young asset. He's just turned 22, and for the reasons I've said. So Danny B's in the house, legend of the chat. Big up, my friend. If you're looking for the reasons, and this is how my mind works, you got Watkins. And you have to almost be brave as well. He's 29 years old. Like I said, Watkins for me, if you're a Fergie, like he did with Van Persie, if you're looking for that missing piece or you want to win a league, you go and get him. Because what you're saying there is, I'm going to pay 45, 50 million and we're chucking it in a bin. Not chucking it in the bin in terms of he may not be worth the money or you may not get like the Champions League and you may not win things. But you don't get that back. There's nothing. You are literally paying out 45 to 50 million. But as it transpires, 50 million is going to be 50 million plus. So 40 to 45 mil is where I'm at. 50, 55 mil, I'm out. That's an expensive deal. It's not an expensive deal, of course, if you get to the Champions League. But for me, Watkins is out. We're going to go for Champions League. We've got a whole squad. We're happy with this squad. And we're now going to go for the Champions League spaces. And we're going to get a proven scorer in there because we think we're going to do that. United are not backing themselves for that. So then you move for Chesco. Chesco, for a number of reasons for me, has always made sense. The numbers involved. 70 million is a gamble. Okay? And it's a big outlay. But he's 22 years old. From a business perspective, like we've got to think like how these leeches think. All right? They're not bothered about here and now. They're thinking about if he doesn't work out in 5 years' time, he's 27. He's going to be in his prime, and somebody will either pay maybe not the same price, but even if they got 50 mil for him, they've paid him off, 70 whatever mil over 5 seasons, 14 mil a season, sell him for 50 million. You basically paid for what? A season and a half. So financially it makes sense. He's young. He's a hot player now, so he may be good. So you've got to look at that as well. Yes, it's more expensive, but in the long term and the asset itself, because these are the words that we need to learn, or these are the words that we need to start which is completely wrong. This is completely wrong, but we need to start thinking of words like assets, because that's what these players are. They are assets to the club, which they've always been, but they truly think about this in terms of you are buying a product, an asset, and not only in terms of a player, but in the future, the benefit to the club is that they almost protect the value because he's still going to be young. So Chesco makes complete sense. Also, for me, it gives them an excuse. It gives them an excuse to say, well, actually, do you know what? He's going to take a year or two. So even if we finish 10th, It's not too bad. It also gives them an excuse to say, look, we spent this money. We can't afford a keeper now. We can't afford a centre midfielder. Who, if you then combine a striker, a goalkeeper, and a centre midfielder, that may cost you upwards of like 110 million. If you don't sell the players you've got and you just spend 70 million, well, actually, you can afford that because Anthony will definitely go. Sancho will go in some shape or form. So then if you don't sell other players, then you got that excuse. So this and this is why we need to cut through, and this is why it's important to have these conversations, because we need to cut through these levels of yes, and fans will support this deal, and fans will be like, oh, Ineos are the best in the world, but they don't do anything unless it's to the benefit of Ineos and the Glazers. Yes, it's a big outlay, and yes, the play may be successful, but that's not always the first thought of these people. It's asset, money. How if they wanted to build a winning team, they'd go get both players. That's a fact, but they're not. Sporting Go says, worst goalkeeper I've seen. My brother is a Liverpool scummer. We talk football. He said we need a new keeper and a striker at the most before anything else. I'm not going to call your brother a scummer, even though he does support one of the worst teams in the entire world. Mine is the same, and he supports them as well. So we have these football chats. For many years, of course, I was able to laud it there, but now I can't. So I know how you feel. I do believe that our goalkeeper is the worst in the league. I'd probably say he's up there with some of the worst goalkeepers that we've ever had. Sporting goes, only thing, Watkins is a massive piece if he's missing from the OAP home. Newcastle and Arsenal top targets included Chesco. That says a lot why it's a great sign and they've made great. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And before because I do have a little bit of a conspiracy head on as well. Okay, but I always try to be balanced, and I always try to look beyond a transfer, right? You know, what are the reasonings behind it? Like Liverpool, for example, they're trying to sign players because they're trying to win a league. It's got nothing to do with profit and how. Of course, Wirtz, for example, is a young player. So if he doesn't, it's easier to spread that amount for a young player over. But they're not doing it for that reason. They're doing it because they're trying to win a league. That's not our first thought. So we just need to be mindful of that. However, you are right, Sporting Gold, because let's not forget this. And Arsenal fans, so Jermaine Francis, I'll come back to that as well. So Tulip Plays is in the chat, legend of the chat, Chesco. I'm loving Chesco. Let's not forget this. And Arsenal fans now, I don't know if you watch the Arsenal TV thing, and they did this thing where like he signed and they had all their people are like on their channel with that thing, right? Anyway, Gyökeres wasn't their first choice. So and they can say that he was, and even if he scores 25 goals this season, and they'll go, oh, you know, we got the best striker, we did this and that, blah 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 blah. He weren't their first striker. He weren't their first choice. So Sporting Gold is 100% spot on. Berta, the club identified Chesco. That's what they wanted, was Chesco. They pivoted to Gyökeres because Gyökeres was cheaper. That's what they did. Doesn't mean to say that that's not the right thing to do or the right player to get. I'm not suggesting that, because what they did get is a good player. But they did want Chesco. They've been chasing him for a while, and what let them down was the price. So in regards to that, if he's good enough for Arsenal, who are trying to win a league, apparently, is good enough for us. So I'm not adverse to the deal. I think Chesco is a good deal. Jermaine Francis, who would I prefer? I say this all the time. So this is circumstances, and forgive if I repeat myself. So under these two circumstances, right? if you are trying to win a league, trying to get 4th or 5th, you've got a more accomplished squad. You know you've got a goalkeeper in place who's good. You know your squad. You've got a little bit of depth, and you want a striker for the goals, like Arsenal, to take you to either win a league or to get that 4th or 5th, and you're confident that you can. You go for an Ollie Watkins because that money you spend, 45-50 million pound, you throw it in the toilet because he's gone. Only not because he's not worth the money, just because you're not going to get that money back. And what you're saying is, we're going to get that money back by being in the Champions League. We're going to get that money back by winning the league, winning the Champions League. That's why you do that deal. If you're a club saying, look, we're not going to do that, and I'll be consistent with this as well. If you say, look, our strategy is, because you need to pick, you can't do both. If we're going to say, look, we're not going to win, we're not going to get 5th this season. We know we're going to be in around 6th, 7th, 8th, possibly 5th at a good push, but we need to invest in the future. And there's an opportunity to get the best of the rest at a good price, because you're not throwing that money away. 70 million is not a waste. It is not a waste, because you can spread that over the deal. In 5 years' time, Chesco's going to be just 27 years old. Financially, it makes sense. The potential makes sense. We're all scared, including myself, that we end up with another Højlund. So in the conditions where I think we are now, I think Chesco is the right deal. It's not a case of who I prefer in terms of a player. It's who do I prefer under the circumstances in which we're trying to do. I prefer Chesco, but we still need a goalkeeper and we still need a centre midfielder, and that's where I'm at. So if it was a choice of Watkins and a goalkeeper and a centre midfielder, I would go for Watkins. If it means Chesco but no goalkeeper and no centre midfielder, then I wouldn't want to go for Chesco. But in terms of the players, who would I prefer for the pure league? Watkins, but Chesco is the one that we're going to go for. It's an exciting deal. It's more exciting, but it's terrifying, and it is a risk. And it is a. I don't think it's a financial risk. I don't. Højlund, prime example, 68 million roughly with like add-ons, blah blah blah. 62 million, 63 million, but he's still worth 40. He's still going to be worth 35 to 40 million. And if he's worth the same next year, then we break even on him because his wages are low and he's young. So financially, it completely makes sense. But for me, Chesco represents a not a gamble financially, but it represents us admitting that we're probably not going to get a goalkeeper, and we're probably not going to finish high up the league as we would want to. Need to play 4-3-3. Ugarte, Mainu, Bruno, Cunha, and Mbeumo and Chesco. I don't disagree, but we're not playing that. Sadly, we're not going to play that. I don't. Cunha for me is not a left forward anyway, so you'd have to have a left forward and a right forward. Mbeumo is a left forward or can play on the left. Cunha you'd have as a right forward or an Ahmad, but the way that he's bought his players and the way that they're going to play, we're not playing a 4-3-3. The way that I think we're going to play. So if you're around tonight, I'm going to do a watch along at 2:00 in the morning. So we'll start to see that. Is we are going to play a back three. He's going to persist with the back three, and my flags to me are going to play this right. I think against better teams will revert to a back four. So this is and I want Amorin to succeed. I really do, and I think it's limited to say, and I can probably say this maybe I've said this at times, is limited to say that he doesn't change how he plays, because he does. It is an adaptable system in how he plays, but I think it's going to be quite basic, because what I think he might do, he's going to play with that back three. He's either going to have an attacking wing back, left back, or revert to left back, right back, depending on how the game is. And then the number 6, number 8, and he's got that number. He's got the 2 number 10s, the wing backs, the number 6 and 8, and the forward line. I don't know if he's going to split off the number 10s. I don't know. It's going to be like a Christmas tree, right? I don't know yet what he's planning to do with those number 10s. Are they going to go as left and right wide players? Are they then going to come back into the middle? It's anyone's guess, but the one thing I do know for dead cert is he's not going to play a 4-3-3. And I whether or not we think that's the case, I just don't think he's going to do that. Sporting Gold, get rid of extra defender. Dorgu would be great. I like Dorgu. I liked him against West Ham. I like him as a player. Needs to learn to shoot a little bit more, but again, he's a sort of wing back player. I do like Dorgu. I think Dorgu could be a break. He could be the Mazraoui of last season. So I think he's one to watch. He looked powerful. He's quick, and I like him a lot. So hopefully Dorgu can do some good things. Jermaine Francis says this coach should change his formation. It's not working. I think it's very subjective. It doesn't work. Now, to the formation, we basically hired that coach, right? So not us. We maybe as fans wouldn't necessarily hire that coach, but if you look at, we brought him in to do something, right? So he's not going to change his style now. Amorin is 40 years old, right? He's got a lot to learn himself, okay? He may not be the guy. Like, we have to sit here and we have to be pragmatic, and we have to be honest and have honest opinions, and honest and just say, look, instead of just saying, oh, I want him out, like, he's not the guy, blah 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 blah. Even as much as I want him in, I want him to succeed, I may have to accept that he may not be the guy. Like, if he's getting his players in now, if we get to game 8 and it's October and we go to Anfield and we're getting spanked still and it's 8 games in, maybe he's not the guy. Like, maybe his formation doesn't work. Okay, maybe it simply doesn't work in the Premier League, or maybe he's not the guy. He's not experienced enough. I want to give him that time, but maybe if he finishes 8th or 9th and he gets that time, he can develop the system that he wants. But I may also have to concede that the formation may not be right, or his style of that may not be right. But I don't want him to change it just yet, because the problem for me, and I'm not just discounting your comment there, it's a valid thing to say. For me, with the moment we start changing formations to accommodate players instead of getting players to accommodate the system, it's what we've always done. And then I question why we brought him in the first place. So if the moment we start changing formations for players instead of getting players to fit the system, that's a failure on the club. It's not. Is it a failure on the players? Not necessarily, but these players weren't brought in to play this system. So the moment and this is just my view on it, is the moment we start changing systems for players instead of buying players to fit the system, then that's where we revert back to where we've always done. And we'll be here again. At some point, we just got to say, no, we're sticking with this, and we're going to get players who can play this. If you can't play the system, you're out. And that's sort of where I'm at on it. It may not work, but do you know what? At least we've stuck to something and we've tried to make something work instead of all these Van Gaal, Jose, all this different stuff. We need to now go, look, we're going to lock in on this for as long as we can and hope it works. If it doesn't work, then we've now got more players in a different way of playing. Do we then change again for another coach and these players can't play that system? So at some point, we just need to say, no, let's see how this goes. But Amorin, and I do agree with you, he needs to tweak something. You can keep the formation as much as you like, but you still need to tweak something for the Premier League, not necessarily the players, but for the Premier League. If Amorin fails, if we still have a good team on paper, new keeper is a must. Sporting Gold, if his 3 defenders have a top-class ball-playing midfielder, then that's fine. Maybe that will be Lenny. Don't disagree. Amorin had the worst season ever in history. I reckon we should trust him. Reckon we should. Sporting Gold again. See, these are Sporting Gold. These are the conversations and opinions that I like, because you bring in some good points, right? You bring in some good points, and we can debate these points. I have my opinion, and you get me thinking, and you get me thinking off the top of my head, and you get me thinking about stuff, and you do make some good points. And I will come back to us. I hate the Glazers and hate Ineos, but Ineos have actually made some good signings so far. For a goalkeeper at Chesco, that's a great window. We should buy Hackney for the midfield. 15 million has been accepted. I can see where you are on that one. I think it's perfectly reasonable, Sporting Gold, to say that you can dislike an organisation and dislike the people that run the organisation and really hate them and dislike them, but like the things that they do. Reasonable, and you're not going to hear a bad word said from me on that. I think that's very mature. I think that's a very mature attitude to have, and I think it's a very positive one to have, because it keeps you sane, right? I have another opinion on that. I'm of the opinion of, yes, Ineos and the Glazers have made some signings for the club, but it's the minimum they should do. Like, I'm not giving them praise. They've made signings and then sacked a manager. We still have debts. We still should be able. We're a powerhouse of a club. We are limited, and our shackles are chained because of what they've done to this club. We have, and I can't separate the two, because for me the two are not mutually exclusive. They are the same thing. Maybe that's the wrong way around there, but to me, basically they are the same thing. Ineos have come in and enabled the Glazers and enabled the debt. Dividends will still be taken out of this club. Millions and millions and millions and millions, tens of millions will be taken out to service the debt. We've got a load of debt still in the club. If that wasn't there, if Ineos didn't facilitate these leeches of the club, we would have so much more money. We would have, I can't even tell you how much money we would have. So Ineos have, yes, they've bought players, but they've only bought minimum players. Like this season, they've bought 3 players, minimum players. We need more than that. Because of their actions and inactions, and for example, Ten Hag, I'm not saying he shouldn't have been sacked. I'm not disagreeing with that. But if they'd have waited until the end of the season, who's to say that he couldn't have got us into 4th? And the reason why I say that and I make that point is because they were his players. They were used to playing his system. Whether or not we thought his system was awful or bad, if you'd have stuck with him, he wouldn't have done a worse job. He would not have done a worse job. So they sacked him, spent all that amount of money on him, and instead of waiting until the end of the season, I don't think he would have done as bad. I don't think we would have finished 15th. Not because I think Ten Hag is a good manager, but it's the lack of foresight from the club. So they damaged that. So they damaged the season. They ripped the season off. They spent 300 million. They might as well binned it. Some of the players, of course, we signed were good. But in terms of what then they did, they then brought in a manager, a young manager who City wanted. We only got him because we didn't want him to go there, and then expected him to mastermind a comeback. I mean, I have my red flags in him, and I'm not going to say that I don't. And there's certain things that he did, but there has to be a consideration for that. There has to be. So I don't disagree, and I would never call out anybody that says that that you like the signings that they did. You can dislike something, but park that to the side and still like the things that they do. That's very mature. Maybe I'm not as mature as that. Maybe I should be. But with the things that they've done, the facilitation that Ineos have done, they've shackled us. It's like being hurt by somebody and you think you're going to be saved, but they're not. They're just facilitating them, right? If Ineos hadn't have come in, the Qatar would have bought this club and we would have signed better players and done a lot more with this club. So for me, that's the reason why I'm not getting on board with this, because they're doing the minimum they should do. We haven't had a strike. This is what we should be doing this window. Casemiro gone, Sancho gone, Rashford gone, like all those players gone, Casemiro gone, and then bringing in 2 strikers, bringing in 2 midfielders, bringing in maybe another centre back, bringing in a goalkeeper, literally bringing in 6 players, maybe 7 for depth. That for me, and getting rid of the crap, that is a 10 out of 10 window. Not trying to get rid of these players, loaning players out. And yes, you can argue that, that's all we could do. But a club who are financially not constrained can just let these players go. Just go, look, go. Well, we don't care about the money. Just go. And because of that, if we are being crippled financially and have been, that's why I can't let Ineos off the hook, because they knew exactly what they were doing. They've cut jobs. They've cut £40,000 to people that need it. Sir Jim didn't even have the foresight to raise a dinner, get 12, 13 players together, and they could have raised that money. So these are the people that are in charge of this club. And I'm not here to dissuade you from your opinions, but that's just sort of where I'm on it. So all the signings that they do, I go, yeah, good, great. You sign players, but I need more. I need the debt gone. I need you to go. I need the Glazers gone. And until that happens, until that debt goes, and until the dividends stop being paid and the Glazers are out, I will support the players. I will celebrate a signing, but I will not give credit to Ineos or the Glazers. I agree with you. It said that the government is a waste of time. Exactly. But and my opinion on it is just my opinion. I don't necessarily think that your opinion is wrong or my opinion is right. Well, I do think my opinion is right, but it doesn't need to be one of these, like, and I'm not saying that anybody is, of course, but there is a lot of toxicity around it, particularly those who are Sir Jim in or Sir Jim out. So you can be toxic and want the Glazers and Ineos out. You could be toxic and just like, if you think otherwise, then you're awful. Or you could even be Sir Jim in and think that if you're not, then you're awful as well. I'm in that point where I'd support the Glazers out, and I'd be straight there on a march, and that's where I'm at. But I'm not going to be. I would never fall out with somebody who had either opinion. I just think that it's really important that we have these conversations and people are allowed to come on here and voice that opinion and know that it's okay. It's okay to want Sir Jim in if that's what you want, but then you deal with the consequences of that. Or you want Sir Jim out, but that doesn't give you the right to make people who want Sir Jim in wrong, or make them out to be like bad people, because they're not. People have their opinions, and that's where we are on it. Sir Jim is a rat. He's a clever rat, though. I couldn't agree more with you. Sport and Goal says, if Qatar was real, yes, maybe it's not here now. Exactly, my friend. Exactly. I agree with you 100%. It's nice that you do, my friend, but you really don't have to. But I do agree with you that they're going to be here for a very, very long time. The idiots couldn't think of raising money for charity. I know, it is ridiculously funny. Stuart Play says, Sesko will do bits over the years. Very excited if he joins. Yeah, and that's where we are. I think let's be excited for this. Let's take the small wins where we can, and I think this will be a win. So hopefully this will develop throughout the rest of the day. So I'm literally going to go because I'm absolutely knackered. 4-hour drive, literally come straight in here, started to do all the bits and bobs. It's definitely Sir Jim and the Glazers at Bobby, 100%. I'm going to give you the final word on that, sir. 100%. We need to, even though we do signings and these shows can be great and we can talk about stuff, for me, I'll always support Sir Jim and the Glazers out. Unless Sir Jim clears that debt, gets the Glazers out himself, and brings in some money, then maybe I'll change my mind. Watkins is a Casemiro signing and need to think long term. Exactly, and I think you summed that up perfectly well. There is we need a signing over the next 4 or 5 years, and I think you're right. Chesco, I think, is at signing, and I'm more than happy with that, and really happy that we're now in talks. And I think ultimately that thought I had of Chesco being in the black and white of the tuna, I think is starting to shift now, and I can see him in the red of this club. So I'm going to go. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Honestly, chats today. Tulip played, Bobby, legend, Sport and Gold, legend, welcome, absolute fantastic chats in there, my friend. I like the chats whereby we do a little bit of a back and forth, and you put your opinions on there, and you make me think, and I love those chats. I think they're great. Who else we've got in there? So Jermaine, thank you as well for your chat. So yeah, amazing chats. As always, please feel free to come back when you like. The one thing I will always say, I'm not, will never dissuade this, is that you lot will never understand what this means to me. Like, you giving me your time, and like I always say, the greatest gift that you can give somebody is your time. You can't buy time. Time is the most precious thing, and you giving me your time. And I genuinely can't believe that you people give me your time, and I just so thankful that you give me your time, you interact, and this community is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it is the one of the best there. So honestly, those of you in the chat, thank you so much. If anything else breaks or whatever, feel free to let me know. My X and Outlook and things like that are in there in the channel thing, so feel free to hit me up and let me know. Final thing, Chilip says he's quicker than Walton and at quarter of the price. Hackney's going for under 20 mil. Can't believe we never even tried for him. Last thing on that is because we've got people at the club who don't know what they're doing. And again, I agree with you on that. We'll probably wait for Hackney to be worth 70 million, and then we'll buy them then, because we're just not us, but the people who run the club are ridiculous. I'll be back at 2 o'clock this morning. Well, I'll be back about 1:30 this morning with the game live. So if anyone is around, feel free. If not, then of course I'll see you on the next one, or whenever I can. Stay safe. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much, and I'll see you.